Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Valerie Anderson, and I'm a member of BDC, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about the Church of Advocate, where I was a docent there for before the pandemic. Church of Advocate is on 1801 Diamond Street. So you see the address there. I love how folks are connecting and bringing the children in because we do have to educate our young folks. And so I found something that says, how do you actually celebrate and honor Juneteenth, which is Freedom Day, right? How do you help the kids do that too? So basically, say happy Juneteenth to everybody. Make sure we do that on Juneteenth Day, okay? We also are learning our history. That's part of what we want to do. We want to teach our children to do. We also want to support Black-owned businesses, read books written by Black authors and poets, visit exhibits and museums dedicated to Black culture, which you guys are sharing and which we are doing, and which we want to do extra during Juneteenth because we just do this stuff anyway. Find events in your neighborhood to go to. So folks are talking about what's going to be going on at the Johnson House, things on Germantown Avenue. So find out where you can go on Juneteenth and watch Black television shows and movies so the kids can participate too, knowing they're celebrating Juneteenth by doing some of these things. Thank you. Next slide. Okay, so on your left, you see a old building of the Church of the Advocate. I don't have the date on that exactly, but that's a earlier version of the architect. And then on your right, you see a current what the Church of the Advocate looks like right now. Next slide. I want to say something about that. Okay, so Father Paul Washington, when I think about the Church of the Advocate, and when we think about that, what makes Church of the Advocate a National Historic Landmark is also the architect that you just saw, but also about the events that happen in a particular place. So the events that happen at the Church of the Advocate are phenomenal, and it is about Black liberation. Father Paul Washington, he was the rector in 1962 to 1987, and a lot of things happened under his watch. And let's see just what happened. Next slide, please. Okay, again, like I said, it's a National Historic Landmark back in 1996. One of the reasons that it is that is also 11 women that were ordained there by Father Paul Washington, the first 11 women to be ordained into the priesthood. But it was officiated by Father Paul Washington, and that happened in 1974. Also, they had the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee at a rally in 1966, right at the Church of the Advocate. We all know, some people might have attended, the Black Power Convention was held right inside the Church of the Advocate and outside in 1968. And then we had the Black Panther Power Convention that was in 1970, which had 5,000 African-American people throughout our country, all peacefully together. So no disruption like people think it could be when Black folks are together. It did not happen with 5,000 folks. There was also, I didn't know, the rally that was held in 1971 as they were raising money for Angela Davis Defense Fund. That happened right at the Church of the Advocate when they did that. We have the Black History murals that got started in 1976, and it took to 1973, it took to 1976. These murals were commissioned by Father Paul Washington. We have two Philadelphia artists that I'm gonna talk to you about who did the Bible and the Black experience. The Soup Kitchen happened in 1983, right, at the Church of the Advocate. It changed its name over the years to the Advocate Cafe. I had a recent talk with folks at the Advocate right now. The kitchen and dining room is not, it's deteriorating. They're having problems. And so they moved the Advocate Cafe to the Madeira building, which is next door. So they can't have the seating that they used to have where people would just come and fellowship and eat together. They have to give them takeout food right now. So things are really changing. We really got to save the Church of the Advocates. So a lot of things are happening and there's not enough funding to keep some of it alive. The Art Sanctuary with Lorraine Carey, I don't know if you guys know about that. They had a lot of events happening at the Church of the Advocate. When they had huge events, they would have it right in the Church of the Advocate in that space. And Art Sanctuary was founded in 1998. So we had Ntashaki Shange there. I mean, it was just so many artists throughout the country, Black artists that would come to the Church of the Advocate and talk about their books, their entertainment, and folks would gather right in the Church of the Advocate. Jazz ensemble, jazz players were coming in. Father Paul Washington let everyone in. Everyone was welcomed. And a lot of John Coltrane celebrations are always happening at the Church of the Advocate. And also they have social service programs. Next slide. Okay, so some of you guys at the African American Museum, we know Jack T. Franklin. I wanted to just, one of the photos that we saw, he took some photos for the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee when they did the rally in 1966 for the Church of the Advocate. So he's a well-known photographer for other kinds of things and helping to give us the image of what Black folks were fighting for freedom and liberation back in 1963, 1965, 1968. Girard College, you can see all those things. He was just doing that. And so art is important. Visual art is important to hold on to our history and how we continue to fight for liberation and freedom in the 60s, 1960s, as well as we were talking about during the time of enslavement. Next slide. Okay, that's one of his photos. Next slide. All right, just wanted to show the brothers because this is just looking good. The Black Panthers at the Church of the Advocate. This was right across the street from the church that these brothers were in line in 1970. The first photo, I think in the left, is them inside of the Church of the Advocate. And then the one on the right is them outside of the Church of the Advocate. So just seeing that happened in that space, I'm feeling it right now. And it ain't even happening, but I feel like it's happening right now. Next slide. Okay, so again, I was talking about the murals, and the murals are about the Bible and the Black experience. You can see that inside. There's 14 murals in the Church of the Advocate done by Walter Edmonds and Richard Watson. So he's a resident and artist in resident at the African American Museum and does a lot of art, continue to do artwork. Next slide. I want to show you at least a little bit of their work. So Walter Edmonds is deceased. He died in 2011. He's a muralist and a musician. So he did play some jazz music inside. And he was a member of the Church of the Advocate. So he was known for what he did in the civil rights movement. And he was the one that went to Father Paul Washington and said they wanted to do something. And then Father Paul Washington came up with some scripture. And then him and Richard, they took it from there and they just painted what they felt the text meant. Next slide. So this is one of Walter Edmonds' murals. So Walter and Richard have different styles, and you'll see, but they bring that whole struggle for liberation and freedom together. So this is one of Walter's slides, and the text was, God hath chosen the weak to confound the mighty. So when children see this slide, right, when they see this mural, some of the families got upset about this mural because there's a lot of violence, right? So I want to bring in Christine Washington, because Father Paul Washington's wife, like people are bringing in the women in these strong men's lives. She had told the parishioners, like, look, what can be more violent than the crucifixion of Christ? That's a violent scene right there. So if we got to look at that, then we can look at this and tell the truth, the good, the bad, the ugly of the story of the fight for liberation. Next slide. So then we have Richard. So he also was a muralist for the 14 murals in Church of Advocate, and he's also a performer as well. So we just had an exhibit on Richard at the African American Museum. He took up the whole, third and fourth floor. So he's just prolific in what he continues to do. Next slide. So this is his mural. So his tones are different. He uses a brush versus what Walter Edmonds uses, a palette knife. So that kind of gives you the different feeling. So this is the voices cry, prepare ye the way of the Lord. So this is all our Black voices during the 1960s, right? So you see, I'm going to say Elijah Muhammad, H. Rap Brown, Martin Luther King. It's Ella in there, Ella Baker, and then you have Malcolm X. So it's kind of hard to see all the images because he does it in a collage, dreamlike state. But these are the voices that were also fighting in the 60s for our liberation. Next slide. And this is the church currently. So the church is still in good contact. It's good, it's okay, but it's the dining room area that not, and the gym is also okay. So they will be having events in there. I talked to Serafina Harris. If you call the Church of the Advocate and you saw the number in the first slide, you can have a tour there, but it has to be by appointment. And then they can give you, a docent can give you a tour of what's going on inside the Church of the Advocate. Next slide. Thank you.